Dr. Ternes, Justin Ternes, thank you so much, brother, for taking the time to visit, putting out a lot of interesting content as we try to understand health and stuff, connected us. Got a mutual friend in Dr. Thomas Seager, who I absolutely adore. He's been on multiple times. So when we were talking, trying to discuss, how both of us in the small state, right, of Arkansas, where, roughly 3 million people, about 3 hours away, there's a lot of topics that we can cover, especially with your work. So I wanted you to give that introduction. But this is going to be heavily around a lot of the breath work and cold therapy, as some of those nuances and how we've done it, because you recently spent a week with Seager. So, brother, give us that introduction and let's dive in.
Hey, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Dr. Justin Ternes. I'm a physical therapist, but I've converted fully into breath work, cold exposure, lifestyle medicine, focused on metabolic health. When I first started getting into it, I wasn't thinking about metabolic health. I just recognized that it worked and I felt better. But now looking back and seeing all the things that I did that actually did help my health and my mental health, if you zoom in, I just improved the hell out of my mitochondrial function, So cold exposure, nature, sunshine, eating right, eating good. And so I'm from Arkansas, as mentioned, born and raised. It's a small state, kind of in the middle of nowhere, US. So there's not a lot of foresight in health and wellness. I remember a college professor said ideas start on the coast and they work their way in, and it takes like 10 years for things on the coast to just make their way in. I saw this like visual of energy from the coast to the center. And I thought, okay, if it takes 10 years for that to get to Arkansas, what if I had moved to the coast and then moved back? I could maybe start a ripple from within. And that was just a thought. And then now, 12 years later, I lived in San Diego for 7 years, learned all the woo woo bullshit, great shit. And now I moved back to Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, 2 years ago. And I'm just trying to create as much of a ripple as I can and, shake up the status quo of health and wellness in this area.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think
that's
that I love that, brother. I think we have an opportunity, honestly. Like I've heard that, analogy about the energy and coming in, how far behind we are, and all that. But I also think that we have the opportunity to look at Arkansas as almost like the heart of the country, almost like if you look at like that the magnetic field, if it was the heart right there in the middle, we have the opportunity to make a huge impact, and I think that we are. I think that's evident in the people we talk to and the things that I have seen just right here in Central Arkansas. So let's tie into a little bit. What made you go from having that physical therapy in the traditional academic approach to say, maybe there's some things outside of this that I want to learn about?
Yeah, I've always been a disruptor. I think comes from my athletic background, also childhood, and good upbringing, but some trials and tribulations that kind of caused me to, you know, not show myself, but really put out like defenses and things, energetically. But it shaped me to really not fall in line with what other people suggested just because someone said. I'm not a yes man. So in physical therapy school, I was learning all of the by the book traditional PT stuff, but I was also the kid in class raising my hand, questioning everything and saying, "Are you sure?" Like situational. What if we did it a little different? Which was frustrating to my professors. But on the back side, a lot of professors would come up to me and say, "Hey, yes, actually, you're right, but for other students and for the lessons, we really want to you're trying to pass this test. We're trying to get you prepared. So yes, just give it a couple of years until you start practicing." So as I was in physical therapy school, I heard Wim Hof speaking on Joe Rogan podcast 2016, and I was just like, this guy is on something and it's good. It wasn't, he sounded authentic, excited on life, and I was like, I want that. So I started doing breath work, Wim Hof method, ice bath, cold exposure every single morning right before class, and my neurons kicked on. My attention, my ADHD went down, but my energy went up. And so I found myself being a better student than ever before. And and so I was doing practices for myself that I saw working, and then trying to tell other people about it. No one really would pay attention. No one wanted to jump in cold water every single morning. Uh, but once I started working with patients, graduating PT, started working outpatient orthopedic, I saw an opportunity to take people from injured and stressed and holding stress in your body tight to, hey, let's use some of these techniques, not specifically Wim Hof, but let's use elements of calming the breath and slowing down. And hey, have you tried a cold shower? So introducing these alternative modes of living and health. And what I found is a lot of people were like, whoa, I feel better, not from the physical therapy therabands, but stress is down. So whenever your stress is down, your body has more flow, energy, availability to move energy. And so I think too, back into my childhood, the Dalai Lama came to my hometown. U of A is Fayetteville is like a college town. So I remember I was like 14 and the Dalai Lama came to do a talk. My mom was like, hey, we're going to this. So I sat like 5 rows away and I was like, damn, okay. That's so foreign to my understanding of ways of thinking about the world. And I was drawn in and that made a big imprint, but I didn't like start reading Dalai Lama. It just like happened and then I forgot about it. But I think something imprinted on my being that really allowed me to think that, Western medicine isn't all truth. And so I've always just played the line and followed and never really fallen into line. Um, and then that led to breath work and ice bath being the primary modality that I use.
Yeah. So it's fascinating the different journeys that get us to the place. Like for me specifically, the breath work and cold came through trying to understand cancer and overcoming cancer, and I think that there's a lot of amazing things that we can apply. The beautiful thing about it is it's also something that is free for the most part, right? Like you may get an ice bath or a cold plunge or whatever, but like for the most part, the sun, breath work, and cold is not something that's going to cost you extra money. The first thing I want to do is talk about breath work, and then we'll kind of end on the cold. But there's a quite a bit of a difference between Wim Hof's method and Erwin LaCour. You are very well versed in both of those extremes. Erwin's coming up pretty soon on the podcast, so go through how you look at the two different approaches to breath work, and how have you
Mm-hmm.
merged or leaned one way or the other.
Yeah, I would say I've learned from three different breath teachers, Wim Hof and Erwan, and they're very much on different sides of the spectrum. Wim Hof is active, go, breathe, fast, hold, squeeze, move energy, yes. Erwan is like, don't like, what are you doing? You are becoming inefficient. You're just tricking your body into being more robust and you're not actually doing the work. The work is slow. So Irwan is very meditative. It's like whenever you do one of his breath hold work practices, you go into deep meditation. But you're also improving your lung capacity. So I think both are accelerating your body's capacity to hold breath and expand. And when you have a higher capacity to move energy through your lungs, through breath, you have a higher, I believe, a greater capacity to hold energy in your body and your heart higher. How I think about it is the part of the brain that controls thinking, prefrontal cortex, and it's in the front part, just simplifying the neuroscience, but the part of your brain that controls breathing, brainstem, and then if you think about somatomotor system is a little bit more on the back end around the limbic system. So whenever you're controlling and focusing on your breath, you're really pulling, shunting blood flow away from your thinking brain and getting very present. And that's a powerful tool, man, just to be able to slow down, control your breath. But then when you're present with your body, you can detect shit that you're holding on to. I like the psychophysiology of everything because usually if something's going on in my shoulder, it's not a physical thing. It's not just physical, there's a psychological. So, like, if I'm holding stress on my left side, then you can start to associate like that's a masculine, right is or left is feminine, right is masculine, what's going on, and you can kind of learn more. Nothing like absolute. I'm not saying if you have something on your left side, that's because you got some women problems or something on your right, you got daddy issues, right? But to be able to take information from the body and then inquire about yourself with the goal of improving the way that you show up in the world. That's powerful. And I think breath is the bridge that can get us there, because when we use our breath. So I think Wim Hof and Erwan both accomplish the same thing. They provide heightened insight to the way that your body navigates whenever you go into stressful situations. Wim Hof is stressed through hyperventilation, active breathing. Erwan is stressed through holding. Inhale, like deep divers, holding your breath as long as you can, and then you get the urge to breathe and you just relax. So stress through relaxation, and then versus stress through stress. Wim Hof also has that ice bath component. I mentioned three teachers. Brian McKenzie was the third. I've worked with him quite a bit. I love his methodology, and his methodology is fuck the techniques, fuck the methods, learn the principles of breath. So methods are many, principles are few. Why does Wim Hof work? It's not because it's a method that works. It's tapping into the principles of active controlled breathing, accelerated breathing, strong nervous system control, sympathetic activation, parasympathetic relaxation. Erwan's technique is amazing and powerful, but if you break it down into principles, where I find myself is using Wim Hof, using Erwan, using holotropic breathing, situationally, that served me best in that moment. And so I believe that you don't just learn one technique, learn all the techniques and then create your own. And that's where I'm at right now as far as my journey with breath work is knowledge based practice. N equals one. Do your own thing. Do all the techniques. Find which one like you like. I love Wim Hof, and I'll go in hard on Wim Hof for 3 weeks, and then I'll shift over to Erwan and really nurture that slow part of breathing practice as well. So that's where I'm really passionate, because I think a lot of people are single-minded in breath work. They think it's one technique or one practice or simple, boring box breathing, but there's so much more available.
So, Nestor's book "Breathe," I think is so fascinating. It really opens up the conversations. I think it's a great introduction to breathing for everybody. Where where does cold and breathing intersect, and what are kind of those physiological benefits you have seen with it, whether it's athletes, whether it's somebody in some sort of a chronic condition, or just overall well-being improvement? How does this intersect? How does that even go together?
Yeah, so I teach from a few different ways, and I work with clients in a few different ways. But for me, foundationally, education really can make a big impact as fast as you can. So I've gone down the pain science rabbit hole and worked with chronic pain. That's after outpatient orthopedic and seeing people stressed and holding stress and energy and noticing that their emotions were tied in with their pain, and if we calm the nervous system, then maybe the pain would resolve like almost magically. I had a lot of patients who were like, "Oh my gosh, my 8 month pain is completely gone. Like, what did you do? What magic?" I'm like, "It wasn't magic. I just told you to calm the fuck down. Like, when's the last time you calmed that? Like, just relax." So giving people permission to not feel the same way that they've been feeling is a way that's so effective. And so how do you do that? You can use modalities to stimulate that awareness of change, because I'm not going to tell you how to change. I'm going to invite you into situations that allows you to see how you're reacting and then give you an alternative way of approaching a situation. So ice bath and breath are similar because they both purposefully stress out the system. And so you get to like, I see I've worked with some athletes, some NFL guys. They're tough, macho. They go into the cold plunge and they have a freak out. They get out, and what happens? They're confused on their reaction, which means that they're disconnected to a part of themselves that they didn't know would react in a way. And so say you're on a football field and a situation comes and you're not expecting it, you might react and you might drop the ball. You might like freak out. So I think breath work and ice bath are stimulators. Breath work, I'm sorry, ice bath, much more extreme. So that's the mindset component, the mind body psychophysiology. But then if I think about, and what I think about too in breathing and ice bath, and I'll talk about both simultaneously, is that It's the metabolic function. It's the metabolic health, mitochondrial health that you're getting. The body is made to adapt. We are naturally able to adapt to stress. Hormesis is our body's ability to move and navigate stress in the world. And so whenever I'm thinking about breath work and improving my lung capacity, I'm tapping into my musculoskeletal system. I'm also improving some of my core stabilizers. So there's these musculoskeletal improvements that are happening with that. But on the cellular level, you breathe in oxygen, breath work 101, you breathe in oxygen, you exhale carbon dioxide. But the breath doesn't just go into the lungs, it goes into your blood, perforates into the cells. The cells take up the oxygen, break it up. That's respiration. So regardless, so you take breath, it goes into your system, it turns into energy, but not every single molecule of oxygen gets used, right? So you breathe in oxygen, most of your oxygen is just rotating, cruising around until it's called and it's needed. So what happens whenever you train your breath or hold your breath? I think Wim Hof is effective. I think Erwan's technique is also effective. It's a practice of holding your breath and then feeling your body have that urge to breathe. Purposeful. This is purposeful stress into the cellular system. So you're stressing your cells. Mitophagy and autophagy. Autophagy is cleansing out inefficient cells. Mitophagy is cleansing out inefficient mitochondria. So if your body is ready, or if you consistently, so consistency is big, but if you consistently put yourself into cold situations, I rock climb sometimes. Whenever I rock climb regularly, I lose weight because something about my body knows I go to the gym. It's like, this guy's going to try to climb. The only way I can climb well is if I lose weight. So if I'm carrying excess, I don't change my diet. I don't change anything. I'm doing the same workouts, but now I'm just adding climbing. So something in my body recognizes that as I'm climbing, the more weight I'm holding, this is kind of where it gets like quantum, and I think mitochondria are more intelligent than we even know. As I'm climbing, my body knows what I'm doing, so it's going to change epigenetics to match the situation, and I'm becoming more resilient. And so, same thing with breath work. If I'm getting an ice bath every single day, my body's like, this guy knows this guy's going to be doing this consistently. He's doing it consistently. I don't have space to hold excess, inefficient cells. I need to be as efficient as possible, and that translates to other aspects. So breath work and cold, I see as stimulators of autophagy, mitophagy, and improvement of efficiency.
So, being in the physical therapy world around athletics, how do you look at say training in Colorado, right at a higher elevation in a more hypoxic environment? How do you view that? What are the benefits? Why do so many Olympics athletes and professional athletes go train in Colorado?
Yeah, well, one, they don't know that they can just shut their mouth and breathe through their nose, and that'll mimic the the altitude challenge because your nose naturally filters the amount of air, so you're putting your body into a higher state of stress. We go to Colorado because there's less density of oxygen in the air, which means that you have to work a little harder, and your cells, your body naturally creates more red blood cells to be able to move oxygen through your system efficiently. So you don't have to go to Colorado. You can do mouth tape, work out the same way, push yourself to the edge. And again, Bohr effect is your body takes in oxygen and uses oxygen, but it only uses oxygen if there's enough CO2 to kick oxygen off the red blood cells to make it readily available. So if you hold your breath, and if you're watching, you can just hold and just listen. Let's do an exhale hold in. And if you're watching, exhale and hold it, and just hold your breath for 10, 20, 30 seconds, how long, it doesn't matter. But how long can you go? As you hold, eventually, a couple urges to breathe in, you're holding, you're holding. So as you're holding your breath, you still have tons of oxygen. Your oxygen saturation is likely still high, 98%, 97. It will start to drop as you get to the point of the urge to breathe. But what happens is oxygen is still plentiful, but you don't need to breathe because the oxygen is lacking. CO2 is rising. So blow off a little CO2. Notice that calms the body. But then that wave comes again. So you can play with these little exhale releases to blow off carbon dioxide to help keep carbon dioxide down so you don't go too acidic. But eventually you need to breathe. And when that happens, guess what? In lots of oxygen welcomes into the body, and then you kind of re-regulate. So that's a mini version. Like that's a one breath Wim Hof practice, you know. So um, remind me of your question because I'm going off, but
Well, and
help
also
direct me
like
there.
the altitude aspect of it. I just and
Yeah,
then temperature. I think
yeah.
that's
So
also
so yeah, Brian McKenzie is the innovator of nasal breathing. Breathe through your nose. Everyone's running, focusing on their nose. That comes from Brian McKenzie's work and his research and looking at the body's ability to adapt to exercise. I play pickup basketball. That's like my high intensity movement practice. I'm not breathing through my nose the whole time during basketball because that would just exhaust me. I need to exchange more air. So there's this level of how much physical activity can you do while maintaining nasal breathing before you have to recover, shift. But what you want to do is you want to find that sweet spot where you're maintaining nasal breathing as much as possible with physical activity. When you do that, you don't have to go to Colorado. You don't have to go altitude train. You are altitude training your system because you're raising that internal pressure purposefully through breathwork practice, breath awareness, versus going to Colorado. The benefit of Colorado is you don't have to think about your breath. You just go and train regular, and your body's going to naturally adapt, and that's absolutely beneficial. But I went to Boulder a couple months ago. I don't do any like long distance trail running stuff. I keep up a little bit, but I'm not a long distance anything. We went on a 4 mile hike in Boulder, vertical. It was awesome, beautiful. I was with my fiance at the time. Then we got home, and then next, like when we got home, I'm like, I'm gonna do that again tomorrow morning, sunrise, and I'm just gonna go like solo, and I'm just gonna see if I can run that thing. So the next morning, ran, used the principles of breathing. Also, Brian McKenzie, it's called the gear system. If you're curious about that, I can definitely share more, or you can just look him up or look more of me up. Gear system is regulating and up leveling your breath to match the level of intensity. Regardless, I'm like, all right, I've only been in Colorado for 2 days, but I'm just going to go for it. I had one of my best runs, but what I did is I ran to the level of my nose being able to breathe. So I didn't surpass my nasal capacity. And then every now and then I'd push it, upregulate, get some extra exchange, pause, walk for a little bit. But I set myself a goal. And the goal, I think, it was really important too for this run because I left at like 5:20, sun rose at 6 o'clock a.m. I had a motivation. I want to get to the top in 40 minutes, 4 miles, breathing, running. I'm racing against time. If I don't make it to the top, then I'm going to miss that perfect, beautiful first sun peeking out. And that's like highlight of my trip. So I was running with motivation. I got to the top like 2 minutes before. I was gassed, but like the last 100 yards, I was sprinting uphill, and I swear my heart rate was going like zone 4, zone 5. But as I sat, I did what's called the reverse gear system, where you go from fast breathing, mouth breathing, as quickly as you can, nose, mouth, slowing it down as quickly as you can. Gear 1, nose only, gentle, nose only, relaxed. And I didn't feel tired
wow.
in like within 1 minute. And that comes from practice, not sport specific trail running practice, but just working out practice, practicing breath work on a daily basis. So, all of that to say, I went to altitude, I went to Colorado, I ran, I didn't do any altitude training. I just did nasal breathing training, and I had zero issue. And I was just impressed. It surprised me even. I was like very impressed with my physiology, but then I was also not surprised at all. So, um, yeah, you don't need to go to
Fascinating.
Colorado
Yeah,
unless you
no,
want
it's
to. It's
fascinating.
beautiful.
I love it. You you have just spent some time with Seager. So what were the biggest takeaways from that experience? What was that trip like?
Yeah, so fortunate to go to Phoenix, to the Morozco headquarters, and see all those beautiful ice baths being put into action, like built from just like nothing into, I mean, one of the most beautiful ice baths. I went just to see the production, and I haven't been in a Morozco, so I was like, I get to jump in. We got to do plunges every day. Um, so the one I was going for the product, I was going to check it out and feel it out, and I'm as big of a fan now than I was before, and that makes sense. And that's something I was talking to him about. I was like, "Hey, like, I love your product. I've never been in one, but like, I want to promote y'all." And he's like, "You can't promote unless you've been in the Morosco." Like, I was like, "That's a very good point." So I made the trip. Got to meet the man, Dr. Thomas Seager, just brilliant. And he also sent me his book. So I had his book and I read it on the flight and I couldn't put it down. The amount of information and references that he has in there, he's so sound in his research. He said that he spent maybe 18 months like going deep, like putting everything to the side so he can really put everything into the book. And you can tell, I think there's a lot of bullshit books out there that are partially AI generated. This is not one of those, man. So I was, as someone who's been practicing ice bath for 9 years, and I'm in the research and I'm looking at everything, he was just, it was so impressive to see what he put together, and I think he's ahead of the game for sure. But being in the energy of the way that he thinks about cold exposure and thinks beyond cold exposure into the other elements, grounding into the other elements, um, energy, psychology of cold exposure. There's so many angles that he went into. So um, I think part of my goal is just getting some inspiration and being in his presence, and now I'm fully hooked.
All right, well let's hear it because the Morosco is the Lamborghini of them, right? They're very expensive. So give us that kind of, I guess, elevator pitch, for lack of a better term. I mean, neither one of us benefit from this, but like,
Yep.
what's the let's compare one of the cheaper inflatable ones versus a Morosco. Like, why would you be willing to commit, the excessive difference in resources to that versus another method?
Yeah. So I'm not one to put one down to lift one up. Like Morosco's lifted up on its own. We don't have to like trash other ice bath companies, but a lot of those portable ice bath companies that kind of look cheap, or even if they look nice, a lot of those companies have gone out of business because the product isn't robust. The product is faulty, it breaks the filter, and then you have to send it back in, and it takes weeks to ship. And so there's this maintenance hassle with a lot of those lower price point ice baths, even like middle of the range, like $2,000 components. It seems like there's a lot of hassle. So something that separates Morozco is that, well, one, their whole engineering mechanism that creates cooling is very different. The ones that you see inflatable, there's an external chiller that rotates and chills the water in the machine and then pumps cold water back into the machine. Morozco works in a completely different route. It has coils, kind of like a chest freezer, that creates cold from the tub itself in, which means that it creates ice on the inside. So whenever you open your Morosco in the morning, there's gonna be like ice on the side or ice floating. You can break it up, and that's what makes it like you get that raw cold. And there's something psychological about being in an ice bath where there's actual chunks of ice and no ice, but it's still just as cold. And then it's a little bit less comfortable because you get a big piece of ice on your back. And you're like, damn, man, this is like brutal. So the mechanism and the engineering is different, and they built it from scratch. So one of their main guys is like a mad scientist. I think Tom's also a mad scientist. They got two mad scientists. One is the actual scientist, the other is the engineer of everything. And just hearing how they were talking, and they're constantly trying to figure out how to improve their units. But again, if something goes wrong with a Morosco unit, they send a person to your house to like fix it and tinker with it. And then you're good. You're back in your ice like 2 or 3 days later, and then they're back home. So that's like insane customer service I hadn't heard of before, but that's what you get when you buy a Lamborghini. Um, the final thing that I didn't even know that Morosco had is a copper grounding coil. So when you plug it in, that third prong is a grounding cord. It is connected into the ice bath. The ice bath is metal. It's not aluminum. It's not cheap bullshit. It's metal. So then they take that grounding cord, connect it to copper to create a grounding of the metal tub, which makes its way into the water. So whenever you get in, you're just like, it's like whenever you're stepping in grass and getting earthing times 100 because it's full body surface area electrons into your system. So Seager said sometimes he just puts his hand on the metal, doesn't even get in. He just puts his hand on the metal. He gets grounding. He gets some electrons, energy flowing, and then that's good. And a lot of guys who are working there, they're like, "Oh yeah, sometimes I just put my hand there and it like calms me down." So that was something I didn't even know that they did. And I think those are the things that you may not even notice whenever you're getting in and doing the ice bath, but you just might notice that you feel a little bit better than other situations. I do think that the best ice bath in the world is cold ocean water in the middle of the winter, cold Ozark spring water in the middle of summer when the groundwater is 55 degrees. We're fortunate here in the heart of the US. We got like the the Ozarks just ooze spring water. It's fucking
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is.
That's my preference, man. If I get a chance to do cold exposure in natural water, oceans, lakes, rivers, springs, I'm doing that. But what they say at Morosco is the next best thing to nature, and I believe it, man. They're mimicking nature in a as good of a way as you can.
Yeah, no, and that is the one thing where I have been so unbelievably turned off by the biohacking world is when we're trying to give some sort of a substitute for nature. And so, like any company that comes out, whether it's a red light company or whatever, when they say this is not a substitute, right? This is us just trying to fill in a gap, getting sun, getting the ice cold water, natural water, right? I just appreciate that because we're so much of these solutions don't cost money. Like there's a place for the Morosco, right? And I think Seager's done an amazing job, as an engineer to to work in things like the ozone generator, right, to keep it clean, to understand magnesium in the water as being a beneficial, right? You'd mentioned the ocean water. There's a lot of other things going on, right, with that, but this is where I struggle and want to maintain the credibility of not being bought by anybody, right? Like, so incentives dictate outcome every time, right? Like every time. So like nobody pays for my podcast. I do have some affiliate partnerships on things that I believe in, but for I'm not funded by anybody, and so I think that this is what's really important to highlight here. You can spend all your money on different gadgets and get nowhere, right? Other than maybe even a worse place, or focus in on what works. Get in the Ozark Mountains, Richland Creek. I grew up around there. That's one of the falling water. I don't know if you're familiar. That area is just is
Yeah,
amazing, right? And so like go
amazing.
do those things, make those memories outside of just spending money. But when you can, I think doing the best equipment possible is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is um, I landed in Phoenix. It's 110 degrees, and I'm cruising to the Morosco lab, and I'm looking around. I'm like, there's no water out here. Like there is water. It's pumped. It's bullshit, terrible water. Like, I don't even want to touch that water. And then I realized, like, okay. And I was talking to Seager about that, and he's like, yeah, some people don't have the Ozarks. Some people don't have the spring in their backyard, but a lot more of us do than we actually know. But
Yes.
we have to seek it. You have to put yourself out there. When I lived in San Diego, I'd wake up every single morning, sunrise, either jump in the water just to get a plunge in, or jump in the water and go surf. But there were so many times it was 5 a.m., perfect, first light, beautiful out. I'm in North County, Encinitas, San Diego area, and there's like 500,000 people in this little area county, and no one's on the beach. Zero. And I look around so many times. I just look around and be like, why the fuck is no one out? Like, this is the perfect time to get fresh light photons, wake up your brain. You're walking barefoot on the beach, you're jumping in, you're like, that's how you should, that's how we should be waking ourselves up. And it just flabbergasted me to look around and see nobody. And same thing here, like there's a nice creek, spring fed spot in Bentonville. I'm up in Bentonville, Walmart, Wally World a lot. I'm working with some of those Walmart stressed out employees, so I'm trying to like really like penetrate from within the ripple effect. I think I'm doing it effectively, but yeah, I'm like going right to the core. Like, let's go into there and try to teach people to breathe. And then when you open their body and open their heart and open their mind a little bit, then I can be like, hey, have you heard of ground? Hey, have you heard of this? Hey, have you heard? Oh, how's your diet? Like, what's going on? So I see myself as like a rogue, like, I don't know, a rogue missionary trying to teach people how to breathe and get woo woo with us. So I'm on a mission myself. But the same thing, man, I jump in the springs here and people like look at me weird and shit. Get in. They look at me weird, but they're also they're drawn in. They're like, there's something there. Okay, what the heck? But it takes an act of doing it. So you can buy a Morosco. Hell yeah. Are you going to get in it? Are you going to be ritualistic with it? Are you going to connect with it? You have a spring, probably you have maybe a pool in your backyard that's salt water and amazing. Do you get in it or do you heat it up just to feel comfortable? Like, how are you living? And that's where really lifestyle health coaching comes in, is like really helping people get to that intrinsic motivation that can move them into doing the things that are fucking good for them.
Yeah. Well, we've hit a point in time where I think probably eh, more than not, people are sick. People are suffering from something, and they're looking for solutions. I think with the last 5 years, what we've gone through, I think that's been incredibly evident that something just doesn't add up. Like the route we're down is not working, and so people are looking for stuff. But we also have a conditioning for comfort, right? Like, so we have an air conditioner in our car, in our bedrooms, in our houses, in our office. When we walk outside, we get a temperature extreme, between the wherever we are and then the vehicle. And so, like, you've hit on stress a couple times and some kind of an extremes within, temperature. Uh, like, how important is it to be uncomfortable?
I think it's as natural of a situation as anything for humans. We were made in uncomfortable situations, right? Like, nature is dangerous, the world is dangerous, we're constantly surrounded by stress. Um, are you familiar with Martin Picard and his work at
Absolutely.
Columbia and Yeah, man. I got to see him. So I went up to Harvard for a mind body medicine course and got to listen to one of his lectures live. And he's just brilliant. And what he was talking about is our energy capacity and allostasis. And allostasis is our body's natural ability to adapt to change. Stability through change is the coined term definition of allostasis, which differs than homeostasis, balance, tranquility in the body. Allostasis is balance and tranquility between body and the world. That's how I see it, is when you're in tune with nature, you're in tune with yourself and you create that calm homeostasis. So I like that concept. But Martin Picard was talking about our energy capacity. We have capacity. If we don't engage with stress, we actually lower our capacity to hold energy. And whenever you lower your capacity to hold energy, a huge chunk of our energy that we have and we use on a daily basis goes to rest, recovery, rejuvenation. It comes to repair of the physical body that is constantly breaking down. So if you live in comfort, you're actually limiting the amount of energy that you have for healing. It's not just that being uncomfortable, like, that's a thing right now. It's like, hey, find yourself, go find discomfort, like seek discomfort. Yeah, that's a thing, but it shouldn't be a thing. It should be a forever way that we think about the physical body as an energy resource. And if we don't engage with the stress of the world, then we're naturally lowering our body's ability to heal. And so that's part of his mission that I love too, is he's like, fuck disease, fuck the Western, like, let's fix the sick. Let's learn how to heal better. Let's learn how to feel better. Let's, instead of chasing bad things, I think that's necessary, but why not explore how can we optimally heal? And I think to do that, stress is necessary. Physical stress, psychological stress, emotional, social stress, as much stress as you can engage with within that range that serves you. So, absolutely necessary, man. And I think it is necessary to hit all those: exercise, sunlight, difficult conversations with friends, family, partners, right? Um, Stress of looking at your fucking self and realizing, like, okay, I'm not in alignment. That's a stress that you have to navigate. So, as it's essential, is as essential as it should, like, as anything.
If
Can't stress it.
you're looking at like a graph that goes out to where you're either balanced with it or it's shifted over or it's hyper. I think like I don't know, maybe it was one of the Madden or NCAA that you could put the attributes to somebody and they were either balanced or they were hyper one way or another. I think that that would be a good analogy for this with like stress. Like we have none in certain areas, and then in other areas it's like off the charts, right? And I think that's the flip side of what you're talking about, right? That's extremely damaging when we're overstressed in different ways as well. You brought up Picard. He's coming on. By the way, he's working finishing up his book that's coming out. It's going to be incredible. But when we're looking at these mitochondrial researchers, like I think that you look at what Doug Wallace has done and what he's put out. He's the granddaddy of the mitochondrial research, and then you got Mike Levine, Nick Lane, and then Picard. And you put those three's collective works together with Wallace, man, it's absolutely incredible. And I love how Seager's pulling from all of them. I think that's beautiful. And again, like I can't highlight enough, he being a PhD engineer is so incredible and insightful to me, right? He's not already siloed in this mitochondrial research, right? He's coming at it from a different perspective. I think that's the exciting part of all this.
I think Seeger's in an awesome, unique perspective to be able to look at everything from a completely separate. Like, I'm having to unlearn so much from physical therapy school. I'm like, because most of it doesn't really serve me. I remember I was at an internship. I was at Dartmouth Medical Center working, and one of the clinical instructors was just like, "Wow, oh my gosh, like you've been one of the best, like, pupil. Thank you. Like, what school?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I went to this PT school." And they're like, "Wow, that must be the most amazing school." I was like, "Actually, it's not. Like, the reason I'm a great PT is because I care, and that comes from my mom. Like, that comes from my childhood. Like, PT school shaped me and educated me in a powerful way." But I think we put too much credit into institutions and things. And that's where Seeger is like, a lot of the most successful people I know, they didn't even finish college. They didn't go to college. They maybe dropped out of high school. So those degrees aren't necessary for success. And if anything, it's an advantage to be able to look at a certain thing from a different perspective. But then you pair thinking in that capacity with Martin Picard at Columbia, and that's a powerful, like, unionizing of thought. And so I remember, like, first reading about mitochondria a couple of years ago, and then realizing that, so most, and this might be like mind blowing for some who don't know this, but if you think about mitochondria, you think about that cartoon that you saw in high school and all the little organelles, and it's the jelly bean mitochondria, and there's like two or three. Do you know how many mitochondria are in each cell on average in the human body?
It ranges significantly, but yeah, go through it.
So it's like 500 to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 mitochondria per every cell. We have 30 trillion cells in the human body. So within each cell of the human body, we got around 2,000 mitochondria. So that picture of a few jelly beans is so inaccurate. It's actually a picture of a cell that's completely filled with thousands of these little worm type dynamic moving, changing, splitting, connecting with other mitochondria organelle. So in seeing that, like, that just blew my mind, because now I'm like, oh fuck, every single part of my body is mitochondria. Everything is mitochondria. Wow, like that's it's mind blowing to me. So if this is new information for you, just feel it. Think about that. Like, notice how sometimes I think about, whenever I think about my mitochondria, I feel like I'm looking down at them and they're looking back up at me. There's this, like, it's a extraterrestrial being and they're controlling everything I'm doing, and I'm just at the whim of them. Like like I'm not, I'm just in, I'm here to serve the mitochondria. So that's kind of like a wild way to think about it. But like, I feel like they're just using me to, like, eat well, get sunlight, fuel them, do all these things. And if I don't, I get sick and I feel like shit. And it's like my mitochondria are rebelling up against me, and they're like, they're dying. They're dying. They're like, what the fuck, dude? You're not, you're killing me. And then they're going to rebel. So anyway, when I first heard about mitochondria, I was just blown away. And I started talking and I was telling people, I'm like, hey, mitochondria, like, you don't know, you don't really think about this much, but just give it a couple of years. It's going to be the hot fucking topic. And
And
I
it
think
is.
that time's come.
Yeah, and we're just scratching the surface, right? Like, so, and there's more nuance with it,
God.
right? Like, so, like, when we're talking about mitochondria capacity, and it goes, the heart cell is going to be completely different than a muscle cell, right? Like, on the density of mitochondria. We got
Yeah, yeah.
crystalless mitochondria.
Fingernails have the least amount of mitochondria per cell, and then the heart has the most, you know. So that makes sense. Like, there's the most life, the most mitochondria, there's the most life you got.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to continue on, like the crystalless mitochondria, the coupled and uncoupled haplotypes. We've got it's so incredible to me that mitochondria are maternal, right? Like, we get our mitochondria from our mother, so that maternal lineage is where it comes from, and that matters a lot. Um, you know, uh, you you've hit on a lot of different things, I think, that are so important. Mitochondria are telepathic, essentially, right? Like, it's so much is going on, and what we're learned in that high school biology is that mitochondria simply produce ATP. They're the powerhouse of the cell, and that is such a myopic lack of understanding of what's actually going on, especially when you refer back to the work of the guys that we just referred to. It produces metabolic water. It produces gases. It produces light. It absorbs light. ATP. If Gilbert Ling's right, there's no possible way that ATP powers the body by itself. It's not possible. So when you start looking at how incredible it is, I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. This is a fascinating aspect that we have to do, and on the same token, it's still just one part. Is how complex and incredible the entire design is.
Yeah, yeah. It's one part, and it's an exciting part. And like you said, we're just scratching the surface. So I think naturally, as humans and researchers and curious beings, we see something new, we see new information. We're like, oh my God. And then people throw themselves all in, like, hey, everything's mitochondria. Yeah, it's all mitochondria. But then also, what's deeper than mitochondria? Like, that's consciousness. What is conscious? Maybe we don't go there on this podcast, but I think, but I do think that it serves the individual well if they understand that they are mitochondrial beings that move and produce energy. They're telepathic. We're quite funky creatures, man. Like, there's some trippy shit that you can tap into. And I think mitochondria are just the antennas, the satellites that connect us to consciousness, and connect us to each other and connect us to things beyond. And so I think it is very worthwhile to understand as much as you can about yourself. And if you understand that you are composed of trillions and trillions of mitochondria, that might change the way in which you treat yourself, right?
Absolutely.
There's science that says that people would much rather take care of a dog than themselves. Well, guess what? You're not just taking care of yourself, you're taking care of another, like, being. At one point, mitochondria were their own organism, you know? They were separate of the human, they were separate of the uh, eukaryotes, right? So, yeah, so, like, there's a lot of, I think, a lot of potential in understanding mitochondria from a psychological component that can motivate you in the world, but also energetically, physiologically as well.
Yeah, I love it, man. I absolutely love it. So, I hope maybe the big takeaway is like let's get in nature. That's pretty cool. You know, nature's cool. There's a lot of things we don't understand, and a lot of benefits going on there from colors and temperatures and sunlight, and all of that matters a lot. And then maybe give that mitochondria a little more thought.
Give it a little love, man. Absolutely.
Give it a little love. All right, Justin. Thank you so much. Where can we send people to learn more about your work, what you're doing, follow along, all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. So my business is True Self Health, all one word, True Self Health. If you want to look me up on Instagram, also website trueself.health. Um, I do online. I'm really focusing on online breathwork coaching right now. I think that's the point where that's my entry point to working with people. So usually, if you're coming for ice bath curiosity, we're gonna go into breathwork, and through breathwork connect to heart, spirit, and motivation, because it doesn't matter if you get in the ice bath. If you're not connected to yourself, then you're not going to get in the ice bath. Breathwork is my primary way of working with people. I have courses and classes if you want to learn more about how to navigate stress and even pain. I like the concept of pain, and how pain's interesting because it can really fuck with people, man. It's a problem. But at the same time, a lot of people have pain and they're not affected at all. So I have some courses online on breath and pain and ways to shift your perception on that. So thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely,
It's
brother. I
great.
love that you're so close and we're able to connect. Just you never know. You never know what's going out there till you kind of put it out in the world and see what comes back. So thanks, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate it, man.